Baptists That Amish Chick. Let's get into it.
What are the boundaries between selfishness and self-care? We're going to explore this today. We're also going to talk about things like selflessness. So many of us who were raised in the church have heard things about how you need to be selfless, you need to not be selfish, all these different things. So we are going to discuss those topics today. What's interesting is when we dug into this, we found some very interesting videos we watched. We looked at the definitions of things. And I think we all realized that a lot of these words don't mean what we actually think that they mean.
Yeah, 100%. And shout out to Ashley, one of our listeners, for asking us this question, because as we've already expressed this in other episodes, like if you, the listener, have a question or like a topic that you're like, hey, can you guys cover this? Or what's your experience with this? Because, we talk a lot about our experiences with things, like our stories. We're big on stories, experiences. And so if you have something that you're like, I want you guys, like, what was your experience on this, right? Or you want us to talk about something, like, send us a message on Instagram or email us, the Butterchurn Girls at gmail.com or wherever you choose to connect with us, because like we want to spotlight you guys, right? And so shout out to Ashley for this question, because it's a good question.
Yeah,
it's like made me think. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I've actually sat down and thought about, okay, what does selfishness mean? What does selflessness mean? Like, what are those words and what do they actually mean? And self-care, because I think I grew up where like self-care wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Like you don't, because that's considered selfish. Like,
right. Well, even now, like with the way we look at it and just the culture in the world, still, if someone were to start naming off things that were self-care, most people would name off things that weren't actually self-care, right? Like there's still a confusion there in it. And so I think this discussion is really important, because as we were talking about doing this episode, we had a conversation about the fact that there are so many women that neglect themselves. I mean, there's men that do as well, but we're women, so we're around women a lot more.
Yeah.
And so
from experience on that one.
And so, but I mean, I can even see like in my husband, the times that I've watched him neglect himself because out of the idea of being selfless, right? And that happens a lot. And so we want to explore and have a conversation about that. So I think the best way for us to start off with that is by talking about the definitions of them.
Yeah.
100%.
And what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So selfishness, when we looked up the definition, it's concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, seeking or concentrating on one's advantage, pleasure, or well-being without regard for others, arising from concern with one's own welfare or advantage in disregard of others, a selfish act.
So I think the important thing to highlight in that is the fact that being selfish, I think so often we think selfishness, especially in like the faith-based realm, it's doing anything for yourself. A lot of times it's labeled that. Like you can have a woman who's like, well, my kids are like trying to like, this is one of my pet peeves. When you watch a mom trying to eat and their kids are like asking for food off their plate, and then they give them all the food off their plate, even though the kids had their own food. And then the mom is walking around hungry, tired, overwhelmed. All she's had is coffee. So her hormones are like trash because she's not eating her own food because someone else's little humans are attacking her plate, right? And she's like, I don't want to be selfish. That's not being selfish.
You're not wanting to eat a plate of food is not ever a selfish thing.
No, like it's not that you didn't feed your kids that day. Like you don't get food, but
you clearly cared for others.
Yes. Yeah. Like you didn't have complete disregard, oh no, you guys don't get to eat. Like,
right.
Yeah.
This is
watch me eat my plate. You don't get anything.
Yes.
Like that's not, I mean, now if that's the way you approach it, sure. But
yes, that would be selfish.
Most mothers I know, basically all mothers I know, wouldn't actually do that.
Yeah. So it's important to look at that and really analyze the pieces of the definition in order to actually get a good grade for it. Because I think we can easily wash over this piece of the fact that like, it's basically saying, if you are putting no thought into other people, that's how you know that you're being selfish.
And you're doing things only for yourself. You don't give a rip what happens to other people out of a result of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I think the big thing, as we jump into the definitions of these, is remembering that it's all about your intention. Like, what's your heart behind what you're doing? Because if your heart is like, I'm doing this for the good of myself and others, or your heart is for the good of the world and
Mhm.
people and yourself in general, then you're not going to be selfish. Like,
Mhm.
and if you do when you do self-care, it's not going to be selfish because you are valuing yourself first so that you can value other. And I know we're going to get into those definitions. So I'm not
But I
gonna-
think that intention piece is important because we have to look at the intentions of wherever someone was at. So, because there's many of us that can look back at people in our life, other adults. You may have a parent where like, my mom was super selfish. Was she super selfish, or was she doing the best she could and her intentions were great? There are people
Right.
who were raised in a really shitty house. So they're actually doing 10 times better than what their mom did. So they feel like they're super selfless.
right.
But to you now, in your perspective, because I believe oftentimes many generations continue to get better, right? You can look back and be like, wow, my mom actually wasn't being selfish. She was actually putting out, and from her perspective, more than right. It doesn't mean that you didn't get, that there aren't things missing and things that you needed, right? Like, we're not
Right.
disregarding like, hey, I missed things as a kid because of where my mom was.
Yeah.
But it's also like looking at that intention of like, was that person intentionally being like, I'm gonna do this for me, I want you to have nothing? Or was this person actually putting forward where they felt like they were actually giving a ton of themselves?
Yeah, because they might have had less in their childhood, so they're doing their best to give you the childhood they never had to their understanding and the
Mhm.
degree that they know how to, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that's a super important thing to take into account. And it can also swing the other way too, where like your mom never did anything for herself. Like she was a complete, doormat, if you want to call it that. Because my mom was very much that way. Like she did everything for everybody all the time. And like I would see it, and I would see her get so tired, and she wouldn't even have the emotional capacity or the mental capacity to like do things that she enjoyed. I rarely saw my mom do anything that she enjoyed just because she wanted to. Like, I just want to do this because I enjoy it. Like, never saw my mom pursue her own passions, her own things that she wanted to do. And so that taught me, by watching my mom, that taught me that it's not okay for me to want something. I always have to be others focused. And so you can imagine the internal struggle it created, because as you get older, like, yeah, there's things you want to do, but if you think that it's selfish to pursue the things that like God's put in your heart or the desires that you have, then you will never, ever go after those things, and you will actually keep what the world needs you to be. You will keep that from happening because you saw your parents never pursue those things out of like being quote unquote selfless and always serving others, right? That's the other spectrum, like the other end of the ditch, the other ditch you can get into. And so I just remember when you said that, I was like, oh, I can't resonate with that, but I can resonate with a mom who never did anything for herself. And it ended up severely like stunting me in my ability to like, I don't know what I want. Like, I really don't, because I was never like, that was considered, you don't do that.
And I think so often moms want to create this world where they continue to tell their kids, you can do anything, like you can do all these things, you can be all these things, you can like, they really build up their kids, but they don't give them an example of what taking care of themselves,
if you don't show
and what going after those things looks like, right? Now, please don't hear that that's like a whole, like teaching your daughters to go after the career they want, and then like you're a stay-at-home mom. Like that is not what I'm talking about. Like, please don't like mince what I'm saying. But I think so often we need to teach our kids by example, because half the time, let's be honest, like I know you know this just from having foster kids, like I've nannied for forever. Like the words don't always get in here, but the actions are always coming in here, and they're going to notice and perceive things. And yes, the words are there, but that example is huge. And so swinging to that other side of the ditch is selflessness. And the definition of that is having no concern for self. And is that what we want for our kids? Right?
Yeah. Like that puts you in a position of being taken advantage of being manipulated, like devalued, all those things in the name of what looks like
sounds honorable,
but
it's not.
Exactly. And like
I think some people even call it like holiness, right? In the
Right?
name of
Oh,
holiness,
oh my
like
gosh.
filling their role as
Yeah.
a submissive woman, wife, mom, whatever.
Like,
Don't get us started on that one. That might be a whole other episode. We'll see
I
where
was
the
like,
day leads.
I could feel you being like, oh, we're getting like this.
I
is
know.
a
I was
whole
like,
other-
we'll see where this day leads.
But like, think about that, having no concern for self. And if you, in the scriptures somewhere, it talks about, what does it say about like, out of the heart, like basically out of who you are comes everything else. And if you like, you basically can't, what is that
I know what
scripture?
scripture you're talking about, but I can't remember.
Dang it. It's somewhere in the New Testament, I think, where Jesus talks about like,
Is
you,
it out of a something is the outflow of something like that?
Yeah,
right?
like-
Listen,
it's, I'm sorry.
I know what
like,
you're. I don't know.
anyway,
Like I know what verse you're talking about.
Listener,
Well, there's a-
listener who knows it. Please send it to us so we can throw
Yeah.
it in the show notes or the comments.
Yeah, and it like talks about how like in the overflow,
Uh-huh.
that's
Out of
what
the
comes-
overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yeah, yeah. And like that, even that, like if you can't, if the overflow of your heart is having no concern for yourself, you will by default devalue everybody else.
Mhm.
Because you can't give what you don't have. If you don't value yourself and like realize the importance of taking care of yourself so that you can show up better in the world,
Mhm.
and just for the sake of enjoyment, like if your self-care isn't hurting anybody and it's just giving, like filling up your tank,
Mhm.
why the heck wouldn't you do that?
And taking a little bit of time away from your kids or your spouse or your relatives is not hurting them.
No.
It's not hurting.
It's not
them.
neglect.
Well, and
No.
you're showing your kids, hey, it's okay to create boundaries in your life, healthy boundaries where it's like, hey, I can't do this anymore. I need a timeout.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen one of my sisters do this where she's like, you guys are like exhausting me right now. I'm going to take a break. You can do this or this while I'm taking my break. Which one do you want to do? And like the kids get to play. They're old enough. They're not babies. They're
Mhm.
like 7,
Yeah,
4.
they're not
Like
gonna
they're
run away
not,
or burn
no.
the house
Like
down.
she's like, you stay in the house and you can do this or this. And if you like, and she's like, if you go outside of the boundaries I've set for you, there's going to be consequence.
Right.
So like, you've got plenty of options here. You've got food, whatever. I'm going to go in my office and I'm going to take 10 minutes because I need a break. And I love that so much because it's teaching the kids that, you know what, mom's not a indispensable thing that I
Yeah.
can just keep drawing from and just be like,
She's not a robot.
Yeah, she's not a robot.
Mhm.
And she needs her to have her tank refilled too.
Mhm.
And it's teaching the kids the importance of creating boundaries. Like, hey, if I'm tired, I need to take a break.
Mhm.
I don't have to hang out with my friends if I'm tired. I don't have to keep playing. I don't have to share if like something's going on, like
Yeah.
that whole anyway. And so I've watched her navigate that. I'm like, that's so good because it's having concern for yourself.
Uh-huh.
Like it's not.
Well, and just in the same way that like, if I was to be like, yeah, I'm not concerned about Leslie. Like, I'm not
Yes.
concerned. I don't care. Right. Like, I don't care. He'd be like, damn, she's a bitch. Right.
Yeah.
Why don't I like that towards it? Like, I mean, not that you should be calling them that, but like, if we're like that towards ourselves of not caring and everything else, the housework comes first, my job comes first, my spouse comes first, my kids comes first, my mom comes first, my church and serving in the church comes
Mhm.
first. Making sure everything in the pantry stocked is first, making sure my kids look perfect is first, the laundry comes first. All of these things that you can come up with, it's going to drain the heck out of you. And then you are a person who is neglecting and abusing yourself.
Yeah.
And I think neglecting and
Yep.
abusing yourself is just as bad as neglecting and abusing someone else.
100%.
If you treated if I treated my husband like, hey babe, you're not allowed to sit on the couch. I want you to make sure that the house is clean. I want you to work your job. I want you to take care of the dogs. I want you to like do all these things, right? Put those standards on him. You guys would be like, this little lady's an awful wife.
Yeah.
So why would I do that to myself? And I have.
Yeah.
I have in the past. Like I was that person where I was all about the performance because this is what makes me a good person. And I think a lot of times that is how that can show up and how that can start, because there are these unrealistic and stupid standards of
Right.
what is morally right. Right.
Yes.
And those things. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So can I like highlight just one little thing you said? You're like,
Mhm.
when I put the church, like maybe put the church first.
Mhm.
Can I tell you that putting the church first and putting God first are very different things?
Mhm.
Yes.
Like just
100%.
just that little side note.
Yeah.
Because I've put the church first and there was zero God in any of it.
Yeah.
And I did it for years.
Mhm.
And
Performance.
we
That's it.
wonder why I was completely burnt out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
So just take that nugget, chew on it for
Right.
a second.
One thing
go
I do
ahead.
want to say about the selfless thing is like what you said, Berlin, and I was like, ooh, that's such a good point. A good way to know if you're being selfish is, or like a good way to like know how you're treating yourself is, would I put the same standards and the same requirements on somebody in my family that I'm putting on myself right now? Like if I were to do this to somebody else, would that be healthy? Or would that be like, whoa, you are being a taskmaster right now. Like
Mhm.
you're being insanely controlling. So if how I treat the things I put on myself of being like quote unquote selfless or
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it, if I would take the way I treat myself and treat somebody else that same way, would that be okay? Would that be healthy? And if it's not,
Would you be
then-
concerned about that overwhelming them?
yeah, exactly. And like, if not, then yeah, like, then you should change the way you treat yourself, because we have this really crazy thing of like okaying the way we treat ourselves, but never doing it to somebody else. Like you would never do that, but I don't think we'll sometimes consciously stop and think like, am I treating myself the way I would treat somebody else? And is this okay?
We can get tangible about it,
right?
too.
And I think it's because we've been taught the whole like being selfless thing. So it's like it's okay to abuse yourself in the name of being selfless, but you can't do that to somebody else. But it's okay if you do it for yourself, because you shouldn't be it doesn't like,
Yeah, well,
not mathing. The
I-
math is not mathing.
I think a part of that too is like, so often we hear this in church a lot, where it's like, don't say something to someone else that you wouldn't say to yourself. A lot of us say a lot of really shitty things to ourselves.
Yeah.
When I look in the
Yeah.
mirror, there's times that they say things to myself that I would never say to someone else. If I don't get enough done in the day, there are things I say to myself I would never say to someone else. So it's like, we need to reverse that question. Would you say it to someone else, and you shouldn't be saying it to yourself?
Right.
That actually needs to be our standard, because we are
Yeah.
much more polite to other people
Oh yeah.
than we are to ourselves.
Yeah. But then that's also the thing. I think sometimes that's also, we're being polite to people, but maybe not genuine or authentic.
Yes,
Because
that's
you
true.
can't
And nice
give-
and not kind.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't give what you don't have for yourself first. So like, when does that run out for other people? Because it's gonna run out. If you're not doing it for yourself, it's gonna run out, And so like, that's another reason it's so important to do it for yourself first. Like, make sure that your relationship with yourself is healthy.
And I think so often growing up in the church anyway, like personally, like self was demonized. And if you go back several episodes, we talked about the heart and talking about the phrase, like the heart is deceitful above all things. Like we kind of covered this topic several episodes back, so you can go find that episode. But can we stop demonizing ourselves?
Yeah.
Like, you having needs and desires and passions and all these things doesn't automatically go out the window just because you're serving God. So
Right.
stop demonizing yourself, and it is okay to care for yourself.
In fact, he's probably given you those desires.
For a
So like, you're
reason.
demonizing God's desires he's putting you, really? Like,
Yeah, that absolutely. Like, that's exactly, it was kind of a revelation that I had. I was like, oh wait, that's there on purpose. Like, I need to quit
Yeah.
ignoring it.
mhm,
Like, I got to do something about it.
right.
And so that kind of leads into, what's the definition of self-care? It's the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, autonomy, and in self-care. Wait, what is that?
It was just an example. that we
Oh,
gave.
okay. Sorry. That was
No.
the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness.
Because I think when we think self-care, we literally have just like one example in our
We're like,
mind.
it's a
And we're gonna get
pedicure.
to, we're
It's
gonna
a-
get to some examples, but like, that's not necessarily what it has to be.
I
Right?
love, yes.
It could literally just be sitting in silence.
Mhm.
It could literally be getting in the car and going, I'm just gonna drive around the block for a minute.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, sometimes sometimes I load up the kid and I'm like, she's quiet in the car. I don't have to chase her. And so like we're driving for a minute, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not a specific, like I think we have an idea or a vision in our mind of what it looks like. What's it for you?
Right.
I think I want to give you permission to figure that out for yourself.
Personalize it. And I love it's like self-care. This definition of self-care I love because it's a positioning of your intention. Like this is my intention is to take care of myself and to preserve and improve my own health. So what does that look like for me? Like we have all these voices telling us what it's supposed to look like. And this is but no, what do I need? What do I need that actually preserves and improves my own health and well-being and
physical,
right? Yeah, like well-being and happiness, especially in stress. Like, what do I need when I'm stressed out? What I need when I'm stressed out is probably not what you, the listener, need, or Berlin, or even Leslie. And like, if you were to see me do that and be like, "This is self-care," you'd be like, not really. Like,
is it though?
Is it? Yeah, but for me, it is 100%.
I think it's good to explore what the options are too, because for some reason, when we're stressed out, I hate how many freaking t-shirts there are of women being like, I need a glass of wine. Do you actually like wine? Let's just start there. Or is this just a pattern that we started where you think that's what you need? Or do you actually need to go for a walk? Do you actually need to take a nap? Do you actually need to go out with your girlfriends?
Right?
Do you need to pedicure? Do you need, for me, sometimes I'm like, I need to go to the gym and lift weights heavy.
Yeah.
There's loud metal music in my ears. That's what I need.
Same. Like,
I think we're so part of a generation that just medicates things.
Yeah.
And so that's what that glass of wine is. That's what that Starbucks is. That's what that whatever is. It's literally a pill or a like.
And it's like a normal thing that makes you fit into society of a way to take care of your stress.
Like,
really? Like,
Mom, you don't drink wine? Like, it's almost like it's like shocking and like you're a little like, oh, then you're holier than thou because you don't need wine to be a mom. Well, you don't.
But think about like,
I mean, I drink wine because I enjoy it, not because I like.
I don't even like it.
We'll pray for her. But like.
I have some.
Go ahead.
While you're
No,
gathering your thoughts. It how many times for me personally, sometimes I just need a nap.
Dude.
Like
That's biblical.
Snack and a nap.
A snack and a nap.
Wasn't it Elijah that was like,
Yeah.
God, I'm so angry, I want to die. And he's like, have a snack, take a nap, like
Right.
that hashtag self-care.
Yes.
That is what that is.
Yeah, and like it's amazing what happens when I just have a power nap. Like I had a nap yesterday and I was like, I feel good and I feel like I can go on with my day because I reached a point in my day. Like I got up at like 5:45 a.m., went to the gym. Like it was like out of the gate, I was like busy, right? There was no time for me to really have that quiet time in the morning, which is also self-care for me usually. Is like having a time in the morning that I can just like be and meditate and like read my book and just like for me, I love that start of the day. That's like self-care for me. But like how many times do we consider, taking a nap as like, oh, you're being selfish or you're like wasting your time?
Sleep, a basic human necessity is selfish.
Like, no, you're literally recharging your battery. You are doing more in rest than you could be doing if you would just still be up and pushing yourself.
And this is important too, because I know some woman watching just thought, my kids won't let me. Your job as a mother, and I'm saying this as someone who's parented 12 foster kids, your job as a mother is to teach your kids actually this piece of being the good parts of being selfless, of like have the good parts. Is that the right word I'm looking for? Basically the opposite of being selfish.
Yeah.
Of, hey, I know that you're 8 and you don't take a nap, but you are going to go sit in your room for a while and read a book, play it with your G.I. Joes, your Legos.
Don't call it nap time.
I don't
Find
care.
a fun name.
I don't care whatever it is. You're going to watch a movie because you are going to learn that sometimes someone else needs a nap.
Yeah.
You're going to learn that when you go to work and have a job and someone's working quietly and you can tell they're in a mood, they need to be left alone. Like this is teaching your kids different things, right? About life. And it's giving them a better mom. It's giving them a better dad. It's giving them like if you are neglecting yourself and you think that you're pouring everything into your family and it's the best for them, it is not.
Yeah. And like
they're not getting the best of you at all.
I love that point so much because like my kids don't let me phrase is like you're handing over your power to your kids. Like who became the caregiver here or who became the parent, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I'm not talking about like, listen, I grew up in a very strict home or like rules and things. So I get the like wanting your kids to be the person they were made to be. And like, you know, like they're smart and you're not going to try to like control them, but you're also the parent and you also get to teach them concepts and like values in life, right? They're going to learn it from you. So why not you be the person who teaches them a healthy version of that? And like, I heard this, somebody that I know as their kids, like they have a lot of kids, like 8 kids, something like that. And Leslie's like,
I'm like, no, thank you.
but they have taught their kids, if you do not get out of your bed in the morning, if you have to pee, obviously go pee,
Yeah.
but go back to bed. You don't get out of your room until we are out of our room. And like the kids, it doesn't matter how late, like doesn't matter. They stay in their bedroom until their mom and dad are up and then they can get up. And like I said, obviously if they need to pee, they can go get out of their bed, go pee, but they know I'm going right back into my bedroom. And like the family isn't up, so I'm not up. And it like I can be in my room and read my book or play with my stuffed animals or my dolls or whatever, but it has to be quiet.
Yeah.
And you have to stay in your bed. And I'm like, that is so smart because it's teaching kids that like it is important to rest, and like rest doesn't always mean sleep. Sometimes it means like just chilling, like doing something quiet.
Yeah.
And letting your imagination like run free.
And
You know,
that's setting them up to be courteous to other people.
Yeah.
Guys, I married a morning person.
And you're not.
I have become somewhat a morning person, but having a husband who wants to wake up at 4 a.m. and walk in the kitchen and go, like literally.
Ooh, I couldn't handle that.
His mom didn't make him stay in bed, clearly, before. No, I love him. It's great, but I love that he is happy in the morning. I have learned to be happy in the morning. But no, like it's teaching them things like that. And I did the same thing with my foster kids. Our little guy would be up, one of them would be up at 6 a.m. awake. I was like, 9 o'clock, you can come out of that room. Like, keep the light off, play in the dark. You know, it's not completely dark. It's light enough for them to see.
Right.
Like, play with your toys, play quietly. But until, like, you're not waking the baby up because I've got to shower and get ready for the day.
Right.
Because I feel my best when I shower and get ready for the day. And have some quiet time to do that. And I'm not, you know, having a baby scream at me for a bottle while you're wanting breakfast. And, like, that's the way it was. Yeah. And so I think it's important to do that.
Yes, self-care, like that's all self-care. And it's teaching your kids even the value of self-care, like and it's not teaching your kids to be selfless. Like I feel like some people might be like, oh, but like you're literally teaching them to have no concern for themselves. No, you're teaching them that there's more than one person in this world who needs self-care. And sometimes they don't really necessarily know what self-care is unless you teach them. And the way you teach them is by showing them. Yeah. Like kids, more is caught than taught. And so you teaching them that this is self-care for me. And then as they get older, like, what do you need to recharge your battery? Like you're tired right now. Like, what do you need? What do you want to do? And teaching them that, oh, these are the things that actually like fill me back up. Oh, okay, this is important. See, mom's made it a priority. Oh, and I have like I get to too because I've seen her model it so well, you know. So I know we have some other examples.
So I want to touch real quick because I feel like we've really gone really deep on moms.
Yeah.
But single ladies, like this is for you too. Like being a single woman, like I also have to really make sure my boundaries are straight and that I'm not putting my job, my business, like the podcast, the whatever, like I have to make sure my priorities are straight too. Because otherwise I can't show up here and give you guys, the listener, like my full attention while I'm here. Or like these guys, like I can't carry my weight if I'm not giving myself the, like the time 100%. That I need. And I can't like take care of my kiddo the way I need to. And I can't do, you know, there's a lot of things I can't do. And it's definitely still like a lesson I'm in the middle of figuring out. I'm still sorting my stuff, but you know, like don't I think it's such a valuable lesson to even learn before you're married, before you have
Yes.
kids, because it can carry over, right? Like
It does.
and mom's like, I hear you, like, it's hard to teach and go, guess what? Things are changing. Like that, it's a hard thing to like
Especially when you shift.
things. And
Yeah.
so one, we want to say grace to your journey. Like
Right.
we get that. But also this isn't just for mothers. I want to make sure that you single ladies, and even just like maybe even newly married and maybe just married and don't have kids, or maybe even all your kids are out of the house.
Yeah.
Or maybe
It's not too late to like, yeah,
Yeah,
true,
right.
true.
Yeah.
Like it's, this is not gender specific, and
No.
it's not like age specific, and it's not like, no matter where you're at in your life, it's never too late to start caring for yourself. And so we give you permission
yeah.
to do that. Not that you need it, but if you felt like you needed it, there you go.
Yeah.
There's that.
And I'll even say that's so good. I love that, because it's not stage specific in your life. Like
Right? No, it's not.
it's literally every stage in your life. And something also that we've talked about working, right? But sometimes work is an outlet. Like, especially for moms, or if you're somebody who's taking care of other people a lot, and you just need, like, you know that your purpose isn't taking care of those people or kids
I
or
don't think
whatever.
anyone's purposes. I think
No.
there's assignments.
Yeah, there's
Right. There's an assignment of I'm taking care of my elderly parent. There's an assignment that I'm raising kids, but God didn't make your purpose just for 18
No.
years, That's
No.
not it.
No, like your purpose is so much bigger, and like the roles you play may be a part of like purpose, but it's not your full purpose.
Right.
And so, like, what do you want to do? Like, having a side thing that you do or whatever that fits your bigger purpose can be such an outlet and like self-care.
And that can give you life. It feels like work is work, and it is pouring out, but so often that gives you life. So don't deny that.
Yeah, I'm like, how many there's women that are like, gosh, I really should be doing the church or something. Whatever, like something that would like kind of take you outside the space that you're in.
Yeah.
Like that can be self-care.
100%.
Like, hey, I feel like I'm pouring into something else.
Right.
Outside of like changing diapers or running to high school practice or whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's like, so that can be an outlet. And then the other side I've seen also, because everything has a side to it, right? Like there's like a go this way or go that way.
Yeah.
Like, and so the other side I've seen is also like people feeling like they have to work because their identity is in it. It puts them in a certain class of people. It keeps them in their friends group. It keeps them in like the normal, like accepted part of, and I get that, like having friends and being like in community is so important. And sometimes we do things that we normally wouldn't because we want our friends to like want to be friends, right? We want them to like us. But if you're doing something and it's creating burnout for you and it is like taking more energy than it's giving back, then it's probably a good sign that you've like maybe swung over into the other ditch of work or doing something. It's not an outlet anymore. It's become it fills
a burden in your life and your family.
Exactly. And so I think again, the intention, like, why am I doing this? Why do I feel like I need this? And that can take intentionality, Yeah,
I want to hit on this for like men too, because we have focused just on women.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's important to look at that for men because there's so many times I have seen men, and my husband Lance and I have this conversation all the time, of men that work themselves into illness.
Yeah.
How often do we see men that in their 40s all of a sudden they're like, all right, fine, I'll go to the doctor because something's up, because I'm depressed, I'm stressed out, I'm having heart issues at 45 years old, which is freaking out. Like just different things like that because they have overworked themselves.
Yeah. And they don't have friends even maybe, or like they don't have
genuine friends.
Right. Genuine,
you have your fishing buddy, you have your golf buddy, but do you know them?
Yeah.
Do you know that there's someone that if you were struggling with something, you're like, hey, I'm actually think I'm struggling with depression. Would you hit them up and be like, hey, can I talk to you about this? Because that's what your friend is.
Right.
And I've seen this so often where there isn't proper connection, which I think that pours into your health as well, right?
100%.
Proper friendships. and men that are just overworking themselves to the point where oftentimes for them it's neglecting their health, because men oftentimes don't want to go to a doctor or anything anyways, right? They don't want to do those things, or eating a salad is for rabbits, whatever thing they want to mention. But for me, like my husband and I have this conversation, because I look at, as a married woman, I can honestly, for me, I look at some other women, I don't want to say I don't want to put everyone together, but I have looked at other people's relationships and I'll go, I would feel like you were neglecting our family if you completely neglected yourself the way this other person does.
Oh yeah.
Because I have seen people where I'm like, this man is 45 years old and he is knocking on death's door, but thinks because he works so hard and because he has life insurance.
Life insurance isn't self-care. That's also not care for your family.
Yeah.
Sorry, friends.
Like that technically is being selfish.
Yeah.
Because honestly, most of the time your family wants you here, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather have you than insurance money.
Yes,
Like,
I'd rather
you
have
know?
you than the amount of money, or hey, I'll downgrade my car. Hey, I'll whatever
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
Where there so often there is this idea that men need to just perform so that my wife has the nicest car and she's able to carry the nicest bag, and all my kids are in the name brand clothes, all those things, right? Which, like, yes, those are great, wonderful things. You want them to have those, but is this at the expense of your health? Is this at the expense of you having proper relationships? What is actually happening here? Because then it becomes a selfish thing. It becomes, I'm just here to perform and make everything look good. And so it's all about that performance on the outside. So I think that's something important to look at for men as well. And obviously this is one narrative, right? But it's a narrative that I see a lot of.
Yeah.
And as a married woman, it's something I've seen and I've discussed with my husband, where I'm like, this would make me feel unloved by you.
Yeah.
If I knew that you completely didn't take those days of like, I need the day off because I need a mental health day.
And can we even talk about how that's even self-care in itself, for you to sit down and look objectively and go, this is what I need as your wife, like, and have that conversation. Is that not a form of self-care for you? Like, that just clicked. I was like, whoa, like that's a two-sided thing. Like, hey, like, do what you need to do so that, like, me as your wife, I feel confident and comfortable, and like, this is how you can best provide for me in this way, right?
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
I know, that just clicked. I was like, oh
Yeah. Like having your spouse's back, like you're talking about your husband specifically, be like, what do you need? Like, what do you need to fill up your tank? Like, because
well, and as I like even
and just as like
is he
as
not
a person
so much better equipped to like embrace you in your self-care, right? Because he's like, I know what she needs from me, like my role's pretty set, and like having that open conversation and like, hey, this is what I need from you as a wife, and so you know what you need to do so that you can like fulfill those roles, right?
Well, we can see, as spouses, you can see what's good for people, right? Excuse me. If my husband does not take time, like, there has been over the past few weeks times where I'm like, dude, go to the gym. It's not a physical thing. It's, I know he comes home energized. There's this big sigh of relief on him. His feet don't hurt as much because he's standing at a desk or sitting at a desk, because he's moved his body, gotten blood flow going. Like, he's had air in his lungs. Like, he comes home because he oftentimes works out in the afternoon. And it's like this, oh, I feel good. And you can just see this like weight lift off from him, right? I do the same thing when I'm like, hey, you need to go for a motorcycle ride. I'm like, you have a bike, go ride it. And he's like, well, I got this thing to do. I'm like, go for 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes, go for a motorcycle ride. Go. I'm like, hold on, go for a motorcycle ride. And he goes back. I'm like, how was it? He's like, it was good. It was nice. Like, it's just, it lets it off. So like, even in relationship, and I think that can happen in, if you're not married, that can happen in friendship. Like, hey girl, you've been overworking. Do you need to like not work?
Right. Like having their back when they maybe can't see it for themselves, or they're too much in the middle of it. And you're like, hey, like, it's not only protecting your own self-care, but the people in your life that you care about, the close people, like, hey, I know you're not doing good. Like, what do you need to do right now to fill your tank back up?
Because sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees. Right?
Exactly.
They're in the thick of it and they can't see it.
I mean, there's been times I've been right in there. I'm like, I can't, what the heck is going on?
I know. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and I call them and I'm like, y'all, like, shit hit the fan. Like, I'm like, give me a few days, I'll be back. You know,
I feel like we've all kind of had those moments too. Because and I think that's a part of being the opposite of that selfless. I don't even feel like there's a complete between selflessness and self-care. I don't think we even have a word of what we like. This is what you want to be, right? It's just, you want to not have pieces of these certain things.
Yeah.
right? Well, you do want to have the self-care for sure, but like knowing those things, right? There's been times where I'm like, where's Bethany? And I just text her and I'm like, are you peopled out? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, I won't text you the rest of the day. Like, I'll leave you alone.
And I love that. Like I don't think I've had a friend yet in my life, except for you, who's been like, hey, like, I feel like I can be completely 100% honest with you. Like, I really don't want to see you right now. And it's not because I don't love you. I just can't handle people. Like, I am done. And, you know,
and I do love seeing every once in a while, we'll get that message from her going, I'm out. Don't talk to me tomorrow. Got it.
And I love having those friends because like, you're not offended. You know that Bethany's just taking care of herself right now. And like, I love you guys and I need this so that I can actually show up again and be myself. And
because you come back the next day and you're like, I'm back.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, like, let's go. What are we doing? You know, like, and so that's a form of self-care. Like, I don't think I've realized how much I need, like, Bethany needs her time where she's not around. Like, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to look at you. Like,
we know if we're at a conference or an event, don't talk to Bethany on Monday.
No.
Yes. Like, if there's a conference or an event, like, do not message me. Do not talk to me.
Tread lightly on Sunday night. Monday, no.
Tuesday, it's on.
Maybe.
But it's just where I've realized, and I used to hate myself for it. Like, why can't you, you know, like, I used to judge myself because I didn't understand it. And I've just understood it in like the last probably year. And I'm like, oh.
But also, did you ever have Bethany time growing up?
No. There was always
You're making up for lost time.
Yeah. And I'm like, I am making up for the time I
She's
didn't
like,
get.
where's that nap time when I was 8?
It's happening now.
She's like, yeah, that power nap yesterday, that was from last 5.
Yeah.
I'm still catching up.
It's true. But yeah, it's amazing how self-care, you know, having those people, going back to that, like, whether it's your spouse or your friends, like, hey, I know you need this, or like, are you okay? Because I know you're like, you don't seem like you're like yourself. And so yeah, I love that. And I love that I have you guys to like, it's okay. I can just be like, no. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel like I have to explain myself, or like you guys are like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? Did I do something wrong?
Look,
I didn't talk to me.
No, I'm not dead.
Yeah, like I'm good. I'm not dead. I'm in my house.
I'm good.
Knocked in here, don't come knocking.
Yeah. Anyway, so I love that.
I think that's good though. I mean, so I think to just, I don't even know that we need to summarize it. I think just the big thing is acknowledge that being selfless is not a good thing. We know that being selfish is not a good thing either, but self-care, I think, is something that we highlight. And I think the more you include self-care as a part of your life and a part of your family and a part of the culture with the people you do life with, I don't think you actually have to think about whether you're going to be selfless or not, because that overpour that you had mentioned, like, I think about that, like the image of a cup overflowing, but it's sitting in a saucer. Okay, your kids can't reach the top of the cup anyways. They can reach the saucer. They can come get anyone can come and get what they need if the saucer's full too. Right. So if you have that overflow because you've poured into yourself that much, everyone's needs are going to be provided, and it might start pouring out of the saucer onto the table, and people can just come and collect what they need. And they don't even have to bother you over there in your little cup.
It's true.
So it's good. All right, you guys, this was our episode on basically being selfish, don't be selfish. That's our end.
That's the word.
Don't be selfish, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.